Good morning, everyone. I am Karen Hills. I am a research associate with the Center for Sustaining Agriculture and Natural Resources at Washington State University. I'm based over in Skagit County, and I am here today to talk to you about an ongoing effort currently underway to create a soil health roadmap for Washington State. Um, Though I'm giving the presentation today, I did want to acknowledge the folks listed here on the screen who are really doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of this effort, and which is funded through the Washington Soil Health Initiative. So before we get into what's happening here in Washington, I wanted to give a little bit of a broader perspective on interest in soil health. So this is a map from December of 2019 showing different states in the US where healthy soils legislation has passed or was at some other stage in the process of passing. So this is, the point of this is just to say that Washington is not the only place where this type of effort is occurring. And it's exciting to see, such a broad group of states actually paying some attention to soil health. That, of course, interest in soil health is not new in Washington State. There's been work occurring over years and even decades that has led us to the point that we're at today. In 2019, proviso funding for the Soil Health Initiative passed and allowed us to take up a subset of activities, smaller than the number of activities originally proposed, but I'm going to talk about those specific activities underway in just a minute. In terms of an update, in 2020, additional funding for the Soil Health Initiative passed both the state legislature and the state house, but unfortunately fell victim to the budget woes brought about by COVID, and so was vetoed by the governor. Our work under the proviso funding is still underway, and we're using the $250,000 funding to set the stage, hopefully, for future efforts in this area. This slide shows the 4 major efforts currently underway. I am going to talk mostly about the soil health roadmap, but before I get into that, I'm going to touch briefly on these other 3 efforts that are happening. So the first project is the long-term agricultural research experiment. The proviso funding required that WSU establish this long-term agricultural research experiment, or LTARE, at WSU Mount Vernon Research and Extension Center. The ground is being planted to wheat this fall. Soil sampling is occurring to establish sort of baseline information, which will help with blocking the experiment. And then next spring, the different treatments will be initiated. And the size and the complexity of those treatments is going to be dependent on whether further funding is secured. The next effort I wanted to talk about is this Quick Fire Grants program. So the idea here was to get some money towards some outcome-focused projects. These are the 3 projects that were funded in late 2019 and are at sort of varying stages of completion. There's more information on these projects at the soilhealth.wsu.edu website that you can, keep tabs on what's happening with them. So critical to making improvements in soil health is understanding the status of soil health in a number of cropping systems. So the statewide soil health baseline assessment is a collaboration between WSU, with the WSU side led by Deirdre Griffin-LaHue, and WSDA led by Leslie Michael. So We're focusing on onions, potatoes, sweet corn, wine grapes, hops, tree fruit, and pulses to try to understand the current status, develop scoring curves and threshold values for soil health measurements. So if you get a soil health test result, you can understand what that means and how it compares to other fields growing a similar crop. And you can begin to evaluate how soil management practices are influencing these metrics. So over here on the left, you can see one of Deirdre's graduate students involved in the sampling effort. They sampled 97 fields in central Washington over the summer and have sampled another 34 potato fields in western Washington. So work on that is underway. So the fourth effort underway is the statewide soil health roadmap. And the goals of this effort are twofold. First, we wanted to document the current health situation, including goals and barriers to adoption of soil health practices. And then, as the name implies, this is a roadmap. So we're not only discussing the current situation, but talking about the way forward. So we wanted to outline a process by which public and private entities could coordinate efforts in reaching some of these goals and milestones. Now, as you know, Washington has a very diverse agricultural systems, and soil health, of course, in tree fruit may look very different than it does in, say, wheat systems or potato systems. So part of the challenge of this project is actually capturing that diversity. So we've handled this by identifying major cropping systems to focus on for this effort, and also identifying a WSU person who is already working within those cropping systems to lead the groups. So some of these folks have already been working in the soil health space within their respective cropping systems, or if they haven't, they generally have established relationships with growers and industry folks that kind of help get to that information in a timely way. So these are the cropping system groups and the folks that are leading them. You'll probably see some familiar names here with Andy McGuire in the Columbia Basin irrigated systems, which includes potatoes, Rich Koenig, the wheat and dryland systems, Gwen Hoheisel and Michelle Moyer are the leads on the grape and wine systems, Tiana DuPont on tree fruit, Deirdre and Gabe on Northwestern Washington Annual, and Doug Collins on the Western Washington Diversified Organic Group. And you'll see that one of these is not a cropping system. This brown square represents the environmental constituency. We wanted to hear from public and nonprofit entities who are interested in soil health from the environmental perspective. So Chad Kruger is leading the effort there. So this slide shows the process of creating the roadmap. We've identified the information that we want to gather and the key stakeholders who we want to gather that information from. And sort of the meat of this work is here, gathering input from key stakeholders. So to collect this information, we provided each group lead with a template of kind of questions, and then each lead determined the best way to go about collecting that information. So here's a couple examples to give you the flavor of what some of this looked like. Over on the left, in December of last year, Deirdre and Gabe LaHue held a listening session in Mount Vernon. This was focused on the Northwestern Washington Annual production. Over on the right is a word cloud that was created based on the responses that some of the participants provided for Doug Collins' Western Washington Organic and Diversified Group. And we used this to kind of zero in on the topics to discuss in our virtual sessions, which were held in March. So where are we now? Right now we're at the stage of extracting the key ideas and themes from all of this information that's been collected and compiling it into a single document. We will be seeking feedback and review from our advisory group and from external partners, and expect to have this document finalized and provided to lawmakers in 2021. This document will hopefully provide a lot of useful information going forward to inform activities at the LTARE, resource allocation and policy development, as well as research. So we'd like to encourage you to stay engaged with the soil health work at WSU in whatever way you like to do that type of thing. The website at the top is soilhealth.wsu.edu, is kind of become a clearinghouse for this information on soil health work at WSU. There's also Instagram and Twitter accounts that you can follow. And also wanted to let you know that we have a SoilCon Washington Soil Health Week that's going to be happening February 8th through 12th next year. We have a website and there will be an agenda posted soon. So my email is at the bottom of the screen, as is the email of Chris Benedict, who is coordinating a lot of this work. Feel free to reach out with any questions that come up. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and happy to open it up for questions now. Thanks.